Okay, so it looks like I've been live for 30 seconds, and I do apologize about that. This is the first time that I've gone live, and this is about the Stonewall Inn riots and the astrology and the launch of LGBTQ plus pride. And I think this is a great subject to talk about. So I'm going to go through the slides. I created this a few weeks ago. I had some technical difficulties. That is why I decided to just go ahead and do it live, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go through the slides here, and so the first thing I want to say is that not all movements start with an historical event. So I don't want you to come away from this thinking that this one event is why there is pride. This is the event that catapulted pride to the mainstream, but that doesn't mean that there weren't already activists trying to gain more freedoms and independence and respect and all the things that the LGBTQ plus community had been, uh, needing, wanting, deserved. So I just want you to be aware of that. Now, American gays and lesbians during the 50s and 60s, they faced a legal system that was more anti-homosexual than those of some of the Warsaw Pact countries. So it's pretty restrictive here in the United States. I know a lot of times we think rah rah freedom, freedom, but that's usually only if you are in the position and the power that you actually gain those freedoms. Um, so very few places welcome those that were openly LGBTQ plus. And the few places that did, like the gay bars, they weren't even owned by people of the community. In fact, most of these establishments, they were raided often, and the Stonewall Inn was no exception to that, even though it was owned by the mafia who paid off the police. The mafia would blackmail the wealthier patrons who wanted to keep their sexuality a secret. So even though there was this front of being an ally, not necessarily so. It was just a business, thing for the mafia. So this is not the first time, like I said, that the community had fought back. But on the early hours of June 28th, 1969, spontaneously the police raided the Stonewall Inn, and the patrons resisted arrest. Now, this is called a riot. And I really have a hard time with that term because no one was seriously injured, and nobody died. But the reason why it's called a riot, because technically, if there's any violence, then it is considered a riot as opposed to a protest, even if the police are the ones that started or created the violence. And so I just, call it a protest, call it a riot. To me, it was a protest. Yes, there was some violence, but that term riot, I think, is conveniently defined to help those in power as opposed to those who are trying to gain, their rights. So anyway, what wound up happening is that the community joined in and was taken to the streets, and the Stonewall riots lasted from June 28th until July 3rd in 1969. Now, I got these resources from Wikipedia and the History Channel, which I do have listed here. And then I have some resources also listed in the description below. So, what was the astrology of June 29th, 1969? So I didn't know, no, I couldn't find anywhere where it was written what time it actually started. But I started thinking about, like, when is usually bars closing? Now, I know New York, sometimes bars are open a lot later. I know it was the early hours. It's hard to wrap your head around. So I just went with 2 a.m. So don't look at the house placements because we don't know the exact time. But between 2 a.m., 5 a.m., 1 a.m., it's going to be about the same astrology, and that's what counts. So there's two placements. When I first pulled up the chart, there's usually like something that jumps out at me right away. The first thing was Mars being in Sagittarius, and then Uranus. Uranus is always about big change. It's always about shocks and just like the unexpected. And here we have Mars in Sagittarius at 2 degrees, and we have Libra at 0 degrees, and they are making a sextile. So that's harmonious energy with each other. And to me, this is like, hey, Sagittarius is about freedom, it's independence, it is lifestyle. And here we have Uranus, and it's like saying, no, we're changing the tide here. We're flipping the script. And we are destroying these established patterns and in regards to love, relationships, conformity. So to me, like this energy, this is where like the seed of everything. Now, how are people feeling? Because you know what? We are emotional creatures. I mean, now granted, I am a person who has a lot of water in her chart, so I tend to go there right away. And the moon was in Sagittarius, and it's in opposition to Mercury in Gemini. So some participants may have been thinking from emotional state only as well as opposed to their mind. So they could have been irrational. Could be the police being irrational. Because if you think about it, some people are not comfortable with who they are, no matter what their sexual orientation is. So there would be people that may be going more from feeling than logic. Now, while others were championing freedom, there's just these restrictions that had been forced upon them. And the Sagittarius and Gemini energy is about discovering the truth and building upon themes of broadening perspectives. So Gemini is very social. It's about the mind. It is quick. It's fast acting. And then when you have the themes of Sagittarius, it makes sense that we would have this dynamic also playing out in this opposition. Now, Venus, to me, yielded her magic here. Venus is in Taurus, and that's the sign of stability, persistence, and traditions. And Venus is at home in Taurus, and Venus is all about love. It's also about beauty and harmony, aesthetics, but it's also about what's just and right, and you've got this love vibe here. So this is about wanting the same traditions, the same things that everybody else has in their relationships, where you can go out in public and hold hands and you have this natural attraction to someone of the same sex. Like, hey, what's wrong with that? This should be tradition as well. And what I found really cool about this is that Venus was at 21 degrees, which is the age of adulthood and voting at this time period. The age to vote going down to 18 didn't happen for a few years later. So to me, that is just like it is the root of that energy, the underlying theme here. Now, what I really like about Venus and its aspects, it's making transformative growth. So Venus is in opposition to Neptune, and Neptune being in Scorpio. So this is the actualization of bringing your dreams to fruition. So love over to sexuality. So it's like that balance of these two energies right here. And Neptune is about your dreams. And it is about what you see for the future and what your hopes and desires are. Venus trying to Virgo, Pluto, and Jupiter, these are two very beneficial planets for growth. And here we have Pluto for transformation. So down here we have all this energy, in the sign of Virgo. And this is one of the reasons why I believe that this movement had lasted. It had legs because Pluto's about transformation and Jupiter is about growth. So it wasn't just, even though this was a spontaneous action that happened that night, it grew fast. I mean, within a short amount of time, there were other people joining in, not just the patrons at the bar. It went out into the streets, but it didn't stop there. It continued. And here we are, many decades later, and we still have Pride today. And like I said, this is a launch point. And then Venus also trines and sextiles the nodes. Virgo is the past, Pisces is the future. And Pisces is about everything. It is about total acceptance. It is about the spiritual and the ethereal while being grounded with earth. So it's everything all together, all at once. So here's another cool thing that jumped out at me, and that is that the sun is illuminating the situation. So the sun is our soul's projection. It's that energy that we send out into the cosmos. And the Cancer sun is emotional, but it's also protective. And it's sextile to Taurus and Saturn, which is practical foundations with maturity and responsibility. And the sun is square to Aries and Chiron, illuminating the collective rune of these events. So this is taking back the power of self and self-identity. And I just think that this is, again, more energy on why Pride is still celebrated to this day. And I think it's going to be something that will be celebrated not just for decades, but maybe even for centuries to come because of this strong, strong astrology here. Now, the power of Pluto for transformational change. Virgo Pluto is conjunct the South Node and Jupiter while opposing the Pisces North Node. And Pluto is sextile to Neptune and Scorpio. And Pluto is trine to Venus and Taurus. So this combination of aspects is powerful and has a long-term impact on the community. So here we are, right here, we have Pluto, which is that power next to the South Node. So the South Node is the past. South Node is what was. And if you think about Virgo is very analytical. It can be critical, but it's also of service. And it's like what served the community no longer serves the community. Where Pisces is much more optimistic and broad, and it's inclusive. It's inclusive of everyone. And that's where they're going to. So that Pluto transformative power is taking it and going, okay, we're going to go away from that South Node and go towards the North Node. That is our path. Beautiful, beautiful path here. And then we have that trine to Venus and Taurus. I've already talked about that, how that is just special magic energy there. It is that beautiful love. We're going to transform through love. And I mean, one of the pride signs that you see is love is love. And yeah, I mean, you can see why that phrase came from this situation and why it is used. And like I said, we also have that Pluto making that trine to Neptune and Scorpio. So here are the hopes and dreams of people with their sexual orientation saying, hey, we want what everybody else has. And Pluto is transforming and allowing that to happen. It's giving them power. And that's what Pluto's all about. It is about transformative power. Now, Pride Month, as I've said, is still going strong, and so is Pride Day. This year marks the 55th year of the Stonewall Inn protest or riots, however you want to phrase it. I would prefer to use protest. And the 54th year of Pride activities. So the year after Stonewall, several Pride marches took place in several U.S. cities. And as of 2020, Pride Month is celebrated in most urban cities in the United States and throughout the world, usually in the month of June, But like some places like New Zealand where it's winter, they tend to do it like it in another month. I think February is one of the more popular months, and it depends on the locale. Now, there's International LGBT Pride Day. It's dedicated to LGBT pride. It's held on June 28th to commemorate the anniversary of the Stonewall Riots. So we have both Pride Day and Month. And you can learn more about the history of Pride and current activism for the LGBTQ plus communities in my description below. So, anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this brief little history through Pride. I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, it's to me, it's just the the astrology is just absolutely beautiful. It is no wonder that Pride still has momentum, even with our current political stuff going on in the United States and throughout the world. Pride is still strong. And thank you to all my Pride LGBTQ plus members. I'm an ally of yours, and I'm proud to be an ally. Thank you.